Okay. And welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited to quickly turn it over to Kia and then Andy for the majority of the content today. But before I do that, I'll just do a little bit of kind of orientation to the space and checking in with each other. So we actually, let's see, we're still waiting on our interpreter, and when she gets here, we may not need to set up the, oh, there you are, Catherine. Hi.
Hi.
Good to see you. So I don't think we have anybody who needs the Spanish channel yet, but I might set that up in just a little bit, just in case. So once that is set up, you'll see on the bottom of your Zoom screen this little globe icon for interpretation, and then you can choose English or Spanish channel. I think most of you have been in one of these meetings before, so you've gotten used to this, but you do need to choose one channel or the other to hear everything that's going on. And then just like we usually do, just so we know who's in the room, it would be great if you can share in the chat who you are and how you identify your role in the food system. So whether that's your professional role or you're an eater or an activist, you can use whatever words you'd like to describe that. And I apologize for those who have been to a lot of these and have kind of heard this orientation or introduction before, but I do want to keep inviting in folks who maybe this is your first time or you just haven't been in a while and want to get more engaged. So today our learning circle is going to be an introduction to sociocracy, which is the governance model that the Food Policy Council Governance Circle chose. And I am going to share a little bit before we get into that, and then Kia Aoki from the what was formerly the Governance Circle and now the Food Policy Council Startup Circle is going to share with you a little bit about where we are in our process. And then Andy, I'll pass it over to Andy to lead the sociocracy training. So this is just a quick agenda for today's session. We're in the welcome portion right now. I'll do a land acknowledgement. Like I said, we'll hear an update on the work of the Food Policy Council Startup Circle from Kia. And we'll have the sociocracy training, and then we'll just do a quick close. So I will start by reading our land acknowledgement, and I'll leave it up here on the screen. You're welcome to read along with me. So we acknowledge that we're on colonized ground appropriated through a series of actions intended to destroy, seize, or diminish Indigenous people, culture, and resources. We deeply consider historical realities, the impacts of settler colonialism, and how profit and harm still derive from these events. In response, we affirm Native American identities in this community today and a vibrant cultural legacy. Every time we gather here, we must acknowledge and respect that fact. We respectfully support the healing and restoration that is underway, and we yearn for a genuine peace in our time and for generations to come. And I believe this is an acknowledgement, Andy, that you worked on with the Nolambika project. Is that right?
That's correct, with their guidance.
Yeah, and this we open all of our Food Policy Council Startup Circle meetings with this acknowledgement. So it's nice to keep carrying it through with us to all these different spaces. So just for folks who might be new to the space, new to this project, or just need a refresher, just want to remind everybody just sort of where we're coming from this. So with this, so this is a learning circle that is associated with the Emerging Hampshire County Food Policy Council, which is funded, a project that's funded by the Health Policy Commission. And thank you to our folks from the Health Policy Commission for being here today. I think Courtney, you're here. Thanks for coming. It's a partnership between Cooley Dickinson Healthcare, me, I'm Caitlin. I'm Healthy Hampshire at the Collaborative for Educational Services. And we also have Kristen from our team here today. And then the Hampshire County Food Policy Council Governance Circle, formerly Governance Circle, now Startup Circle, is also a key partner on the project. They've been puzzling through some really key questions about the governance structure of the Food Policy Council. The Hilltown Community Health Center is involved, thinking about linkages between community level food system interventions, food access interventions, and the healthcare environment. So how can we make sure that the access to those programs and interventions in our community are being integrated into patient care through the healthcare environment. And Hilltown Community Development is supporting our connections to the Hilltown community as well. So this is when I turn it over to you, Kia. So take it away, Kia, and I will stop sharing if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine. So I'm not exactly sure where I should start from. I mean, update from going back to like how long?
Let's see. Well, we had a learning circle in our last update at a learning circle was in December. So maybe if you want to talk about how we kind of wrapped up the end of 2020 and where we are now.
Okay, so throughout the year, throughout 2020, inside Zoom meetings, we were using Sociocracy as a model to try to figure out if we wanted to use that as a governance structure for the Food Policy Council going forward. We did finally make that decision, and we chose Sociocracy. And the reason why we use it is because it really digs into everybody's feelings about what they want to do, how they want to do it without interfering in somebody else's feelings or ideas. You know, everybody gets a chance to really dig in and be comfortable saying what they need to say without being interrupted or without feeling left out or belittled or anything. It takes out all of that. And we did test a couple of other models, which included, you know, whether or not we wanted to use voting at some point or other ways to govern ourselves. And we always came back to this one because it really levels the playing field for everybody in the group. So since then, since we had discovered our model for governing, the next step is to set ourselves up in the Food Policy Council. So we know how we're going to govern ourselves. The next step is to decide the types of issues we want to address, setting up other circles. So, for example, we're in the process of setting up, and we're actually there. These are active circles. So there's a training circle, which is going to decide who needs training and for what. There's a budget circle. There's a VMAD circle, and all of those things are going to be used to push the project forward. And all of these things are going to assist us in deciding what projects to tackle and be able to tackle them in a really equitable way with one another. So I think pretty much that's where we're at. Does anybody have questions or anything you need clarified? I'd be happy to answer that now. Yes. Debbie, was that you? Did you raise your hand? Oh, no. Okay.
I was wondering, what was that third circle you mentioned?
The VMAD circle. So vision,
VMAD?
mission, aim, domain, right? Vision, mission, aim, and domain. So it's pretty much setting up like a mission statement and the rules that we use to stay civil, pretty much, with one another. So yeah, that's a big part of it. Like I think having a statement like that is probably important to make sure that everybody has a clear-eyed sense of how to communicate with one another. You know, that's pretty much what that's for. Caitlin, is there anything else I should be talking about? Did I cover everything?
No, I think that was a great overview. Thank you so much, Kia. There's obviously a lot we've been talking about, so hard to kind of boil it down to that high level. I think you did a great job. And yeah, so I'll just put in the chat quickly. I think everybody here is on our email list already, but if you are not on our email list, if you haven't been, if you got here some other way besides receiving emails from me directly, you can fill out this survey and that's how you will get on our email list. And I just put the link to the survey in the chat. So it's just tinyurl.com/HCFPC survey. And that is all I have. So I can just go ahead and turn it over to you, Andy.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Andy Grant. Welcome to this training. We're going to go until 3 o'clock. I'll just give you a little bit of my background. I came to Western Mass about 12 years ago and soon got involved in the food co-op in Greenfield. I'm now serving on the board of directors of the Franklin Community Co-op and was a part of the establishment of Just Roots and the Greenfield Community Farm. I was involved in that project for 6 years and have transitioned to North Amherst, where I live, and I am in a co-housing community that uses Sociocracy. I have been involved with the organization SOFA, Sociocracy for All, for about 4 years. I was in the leadership training that they offer. When I was at Just Roots, I was managing the community garden there, and we used Sociocracy to involve community members in running the garden. And now I'm in the SOFA Academy, where I'm training to be a trainer in Sociocracy. I connected with this project first when I was helping to start a food co-op here in Amherst. Caitlin and Sarah reached out to me, and I've stayed involved in the Mobile Market Initiative, and now with the setup of the Food Policy Council, it seemed natural to offer Sociocracy as an organizing principle. And I've been on contract with the Collaborative for Educational Services for 1.5 years and helped to facilitate the governance circle, which Kia mentioned. The first thing I did when I first met Kia was when we did some training, we call them Empowered Learning Circle training at Hampshire Heights in Northampton. And we did that in person before COVID. So Kia is a veteran, and Kia, by the way, I'll be looking to you as we go along today to offer your ideas and experience. And then we set up the governance circle, which I facilitated using the pattern of Sociocracy. And that group itself selected its own governance system. And that took us 5 months, which sounds like a long period of time, but it was a thorough survey, on-the-ground experience, and working in a deep listening process to get to the point where the group itself was clear to decide this organizing or select this organizing principle. That governance circle has now transitioned into a startup circle to get the Food Policy Council up and running using Sociocracy. I would like to do a quick round. As we work together, it's very typical to, it's our standard, in fact, to do a check-in round. Just how are we arriving at the meeting as a human being? And I would like to add to that, when you hear Food Policy Council, what does that mean to you? Who would like to start? And then I'll call the rest of the round. Okay, Madeline, if you would go first, and then Kristen.
Okay, hi everybody. I introduced myself in the chat. I'm at the UMass Amherst Libraries. I'm the Sustainable Food and Farming librarian. I am feeling a little fatigued, but excited to be here. When I hear Food Policy Council, I think, oh, great. I'm so glad that my county is organizing themselves for more access to healthy food. Check.
Kristen and then Roz.
Hi, everyone. I am feeling pretty good, actually. I just went out for a short walk and it's kind of warm out. I don't know if anyone has been outside, but it is definitely like the air feels warmer, which is really exciting. And when I think of Food Policy Council, I guess I think about sort of what we sometimes call policy systems and environment change, like structural change to the food system.
Roz and then Courtney. You're muted, Roz. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Speaks to my state of mind. I'm feeling a little sluggish today, my brain's a little warped. I'm not quite sure why. When I think about the Food Policy Council, I think about our months and months of hard work and how we're continuing to evolve. Done.
Courtney and then Kelly.
Hi, everyone. I'm feeling flustered today, I'll say. I'm trying very hard not to multitask and stay present during this meeting. And what does Food Policy Council mean to me? I'll say I'm a visual learner, so I immediately think of how you can translate policy into a more visual thing, being a cornucopia, and how linking access and food in a systems level. So that probably sounds a little out there, but that's what I think when I hear that.
Kelly and then Kathleen.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm very excited to be here, so that's how I'm feeling. And when I hear Food Policy Council, I see it as a place where immediate change can possibly happen, and it is something that I want to be a part of.
Awesome. Kathleen and then Robbie.
Hi, I'm here from the Huntington Council on Aging, and it's because I feel that healthy foods is extremely important, and having it available, and been working with Caitlin in helping to manifest our mobile markets since the beginning. And today for me, it's a gorgeous day. It's been a busy day. I've had to multitask because our brown bag got canceled from Friday to Tuesday. So I was working in that capacity this morning. So it's been a very busy day. I'm grateful to be here so I can learn about learn about sociocracy, because I know nothing except for what I perhaps learned secondhand by how Caitlin handles her meetings.
Sociocracy is a tough word. Yeah. Robbie and then back to Kia.
Hi, I'm Robbie. I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. I'm working for the West Hampton Board of Health and doing a lot of stuff around vaccines, and so it's a very busy time right now. I have 3 meetings today, so I'm going to have to leave just a little bit early. I'm sorry.
Sure.
And when I think of food policy, I think about reaching people who need food. And I'm very excited to be involved with this. I worked with a little tiny bit with Madeline at UMass, and I'm very excited to see her here. And I'm hoping to be more and more involved in this. So I'm happy to be here.
Kia and then Kathy.
So when I was first introduced to sociocracy, I took I think it was, what was it, a 10-week training?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, 10 weeks, okay. And at the end of that 10 weeks, I was presented with a diagram of a hypothetical food policy council with the circle of the food policy council, and then having like branches come out in all different directions that could address like issue after issue after issue. And at the time, to my understanding, it was still hypothetical, but all of a sudden I was just really interested in getting really involved because I thought it could do so much good work. And so here I am. You know, I've pretty much been volunteering this whole time to set things up. But what happens with the Food Policy Council, with the work that needs to be done, it sends me down like these infinite rabbit holes of policy and how to change it, and looking at, you know, different ways for legislation and policy ideas, and, you know, connecting with other people to get more information. And so this is where my head is at. This is how I'm coming to the meeting, like full of ways to fix everything. So not that I can do it by myself, which is why I'm here. So so that's how I'm coming, and, you know, that's how I feel today. So I'm good. So that's
Kathy, and then Karen.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy Wicks, and I'm feeling very ready for spring. I've lived in a consensus-based co-housing community in Northampton for 15 years now, and I'm excited to learn more about how sociocracy is different than just consensus-based. And when I think about the Food Policy Council, I think about connecting more parts of the food system to be more equitable, to teasing apart existing policy with an equity lens, and creating lasting change so that everybody has equal access to healthy food.
Karen, and then Caitlin. Hi, Karen.
I'm here. Hi. Hi, everybody. Well, I am also feeling really, really ready for spring, but very happy to be here. The sociology, the food sociology is very new to me, so I'm excited to learn more about it. And I'm really looking for, with the Food Policy Council, more equity and justice in making sure that food is distributed to everyone in a fair manner. So that's what's really important to me. And that's why I want to be part of this.
Caitlin, and then Debbie.
Hi, everyone. So I'm feeling pretty good today. There's a lot going on, but I'm feeling like okay about how I'm managing my time so far this week. But that often is the case in the beginning of the week, so we'll see how that goes. And when I think about the Food Policy Council, I think about the distribution of power. That's what feels really exciting to me.
Debbie, and then Rosanna. You're muted, Debbie. Sorry.
I'm feeling really hopeful that spring is around the corner because it does feel warm outside. When I think about Food Policy Council, what I think about is kind of the hope that change will come about for more equity and access to healthy foods for people that traditionally haven't had that opportunity. So that makes me hopeful.
Rosanna.
Hi to all. I'm Rosanna Salazar, and I'm working at CES and Healthy Families and Community with Healthy Hampshire, mainly in community engagement and evaluation. And I am ready for flowers in gardens too, many flowers. Thinking in Food Policy Council is to think in justice and empower communities, in voices at the table. Yeah.
Is there anyone else who hasn't checked in who would like to check in at this time? The screen went around in a little different order.
Yeah, I can chime. I can
Yeah,
chime in.
go
Oh,
ahead,
sorry.
Elisa, and then Hope.
Oh, that would be me. Hi, everyone. I'm Elisa Klein from Grow Food Northampton. And I loved what Rosanna just said about flowers, that can't wait to see flowers. So exciting. Today I'm feeling very overwhelmed. I just came back from a week of vacation, which was wonderful, but it means that I'm trying to do, 2 weeks of work in 1 week to make up for lost time, as it were. And Food Policy Council to me feels like such an incredible opportunity for community building and collaboration of all of the organizations and individuals and communities that that make up our food system. And I'm thinking about the people who grow our food locally, as well as those of us who consume it, and just creating an equitable access, as many people have said, for everyone involved in the food system, from the growers to the people who move the food, supply chain folks, and those of us who consume food. And thanks for doing this. I'm a huge fan of the work of Caitlin, and Sociocracy is a very exciting opportunity. And I just want to apologize. I actually have to leave in 15 minutes for another meeting, but I will be here in spirit for the whole meeting.
Thanks for letting us know. Hope, and then we'll go to Catherine, our interpreter. Hope? You're muted, Hope.
Thanks. So I'm a farm and food and garden educator, and I work in Northampton and East Hampton. I live in Belchertown. I'm on the Board of Health here. And so I kind of surround myself with a lot of things food related. And so Food Policy Council brings up a lot, but particularly it brings up memories of the Holyoke Food Policy Council, which was really formative for me when I had more recently moved to the Valley about 20 years ago. And what I felt about that grouping was that it was a network of support of a real diversity of organizations and individuals who wanted to see change within the food system. And so I am excited that that is evolving here in Hampshire County.
And our interpreter, Catherine, is with us. I'd like to say a word about Catherine. She has been part of a team who have provided simultaneous interpretation for our meetings in Zoom. Quite a feat. So Catherine, thank you for that. Would you like to check in, Catherine?
Sure. My name is Catherine. Thank you, Andy. And yes, and when I think about food policy and all these meetings that I have interpreted and all that I have learned, what I like is that when that comes to my mind is a lot of people helping each other. And that's warmed me to my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. All right, we're right on schedule. Anyone else that we haven't heard from? I think we're good to go. There are a few people in the room who just were in a training with me, so some of this will be repeated, but we'll have a chance to go in a little more depth. I'd like to start out with a video. Again, I mentioned that I'm with Sociocracy for All. And this is the homepage. By the way, our name, Sociocracy for All, that is reflective of our purpose. We're providing this social technology, you could describe it, for everyone in different languages and different budgets. And we reach people all around the world, literally, with a range of trainings and implementation support in Sociocracy. So here's an introductory video. It's just 4 minutes long.
You want to make a difference, and you want to make a difference together. Working together, getting things done, can be fun. We long for that experience. You can be effective and open in a way that respects everyone in your group. You want your group to make decisions fast, to hear everyone's voice, and to enjoy success. Sociocracy came from the Netherlands and has spread all over Europe, the US, and the world. It is an established, tried and tested governance system, ready for you to use. Some people prefer to call it dynamic governance. Let's look at how decisions are made in sociocracy. An issue will come to a working group.
So I was contacted because there was an issue with...
The group will create a full picture of what is going on. They will follow a process to come to a proposal that takes everybody into account. In sociocracy, we want all voices to be heard. One tool to do that is to talk in rounds. Rounds make it easy for people to speak, and since you know you will be heard, rounds also make it easier to listen. We want to make good decisions and have all voices and concerns get equal consideration.
Okay, I think we covered everything. Yeah, and I think this should work for everyone too.
Decisions are made by consent. We ask, is this proposal good enough to try out? Does anyone object to the proposal? Not everyone gets their personal preference. We figure out a way to improve our proposal until it is good enough and everyone can consent to it. The whole group takes responsibility for the objections and seeks to address the underlying concerns.
So let's see if we've dealt with all objection and do a consent round.
I consent.
No objection.
No objection. I consent.
Consent.
No more objections.
I don't have any objections, so it looks like we have consent.
In sociocracy, we call the working groups circles. Each circle has an aim, a shared purpose. Circles make decisions about responsibilities that are in their domain. The people who actually do the work together decide together. They know best what needs to happen. They do the work. They see what works and what doesn't. Let them make the decisions. How do we make a whole from the parts? In sociocracy, we do this through linking. Every circle has a leader and a delegate. The leaders and delegates of the department-level circles together form the general circle. Information can now flow back and forth through the entire organization. The leader typically lets the circle know the overall operational plan and what needs to be done. The delegate makes sure the department circle's experience is heard in the general circle. We call this the double link. Subcircles are also double linked. That way, we get maximal transparency and efficiency throughout the whole organization. When decisions are put into practice, it is often thought as a one-way street. However, in order to get closer to our goals, we have to make sure we measure the outcome of our decisions in order to find out if what we're doing is actually working. We can only get better if we listen to what needs improvement and what is working well.
When we decided this, we totally forgot to take into account.
The circle may decide to revise their policies and practices, or the circle might decide to extend the feedback process by involving other circles, like their mother circle or a helping circle, to get more input on how to make a decision that is within the range of tolerance of everyone who is affected. We can continually adapt to our changing world. We don't get stuck.
Everybody can have their voice in this.
And we will always work something out that everyone can consent to.
More people can participate deeply.
Our circle structure helps us to be effective
And fully transparent in our organization as a whole.
Not everything will be perfect right away.
But if we keep experimenting, our organization as a whole will get better all the time.
If you're inspired to introduce sociocracy in your organization, we can help.
Okay, let's take a moment to debrief. Is there a word or phrase that stuck out for you from the video? Just open your mic and go ahead and say what that is.
Every voice counts.
Circle.
I guess changing it to terms in which I'm more familiar would be reflect, review, and reform.
Wow.
Objections exist.
Okay, a couple more. Looks like we're ready to go ahead. I'll share screen for the next part. This is a slideshow that I put together expecting a bilingual audience. So the Sociocracy for All is the name of our organization, and Sociocracia Practica is the Spanish language community. And that's quite a vibrant community, including people in Spain and Mexico and the US. This diagram, so if you're in Spanish, you would want to look on the right-hand side. If you're in English, you want to look on the left. This is a kind of in one view diagram of sociocracy, which includes three main parts: consent decision making, organizational structure by linked circles, and continuous evolution by feedback. So consent, circles, and feedback, all moving toward an aim. So when we spoke about the Food Policy Council, what that means to us individually, that kind of information, that kind of impetus would go into the aim, the thing that we're all moving toward. And sociocracy seeks to be both egalitarian and effective. Every voice matters, and we get things done. There are several moments that are repeated over and over in our work. This understand, where we ask clarifying questions to be sure that we understand a situation. Explore, where we hear from one another and draw on the wisdom of the group. And then decide, when we pull it together and either make a coherent policy, or later on you'll see making a decision together. If you have any questions at all as we go along, feel free to signal and I'll be happy to pause and respond to your questions. This is an example of how one series of steps is repeated in the process. So this is the steps for generating a proposal, very similar to the steps related to making a decision, and as a foundation, steps toward understanding the context. So to take the Food Policy Council, for example, we would seek to understand what are the actual experiences in the community and what people's expressed needs are, and explore that as a council and decide what to focus as areas of concern. And then bring that into a proposal for how to address those concerns, and then make a decision to go ahead. That would be an example of how that process would go. Kia, can I call on you for a little boost here? If you could help me describe the range of tolerance. Not to put you on the spot.
Sure. So not everybody, like, okay, so picture us going in rounds and asking, and everybody one after another weighing in and hearing everybody else. And, you know, everybody's different. Everybody's personalities are different. Everybody's way to think about a specific topic are going to be a little bit different. So the point here is to get to a range of tolerance. Like, even if you don't fully agree with the whole program, can you tolerate it? Can you agree to try it out and see how you feel about it? You know, is it tolerable? You know, does it make you so uncomfortable that you just have to object completely out of hand, no, it's not happening. So, I mean, that's kind of the way I understand it. And I think it leaves room for, it leaves a lot of room for discussion in future rounds, like you can discuss what's uncomfortable for you, or, maybe it's going to show up in something that you're vulnerable about, but I think that vulnerability is part of the key here to getting everybody to trust one another and to trust the process. And in the end, everybody that has that little bit of vulnerability exposed will understand that their concerns will absolutely be listened to, thought about seriously, and met as best as the group can meet it. So that's my interpretation of range of tolerance.
So what she said. Thank you, Kia. I'll add to that this is hard with homogeneous groups. It's even more of a challenge with groups with high diversity. Diversity of life experience, diversity of privilege, diversity of education, whatever the differences are. And I think we all have a commitment to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So a common understanding that we all will be stretching doesn't have to be something that we love or like. The basic question is this something that we can work with? And that is tested against the stated aim of the circle. What is the work that we've agreed to do together? And if it's outside of the range of tolerance, then that means that there's something about this that would interfere with the group reaching its stated aim. If we do this, friends, it's going to likely cause this problem. Every proposal is a guess about future conditions. And at this juncture, when we're trying to make a consent decision, there are people in the circle who may have more of a sense of jeopardy or threat. And one thing that we say over and over again, because it's so important, is that objections are welcome. A short way to say that is objections are not objectionable. We look for objections. We want to hear objections because a person may have a different experience, a different point of view, more information that can come into the group and help the group come up with a better solution or better decision. So in practicality, when the group is working through its process, if someone has an objection, the group makes note of it and comes back and takes time to listen to the objection for understanding, and then responding to the objection with an aim of integrating the objection into the overall proposal. Robbie, go ahead, please.
So these are good and understandable for objections. What happens when personalities get in the way? Or will that come up later?
Wow, that's a deep question. And we've had a lot of track time together in groups, experiencing one another's personalities. My personality, I tend to want to organize and have things structured very carefully, and I'm very deliberate. And that doesn't always work for the group. So I've had to understand my personality and my contribution to the group. Well, one thing about this brand of sociocracy is that nonviolent communication is kind of baked into how we work. So the way that applies most directly is that if there's an emotional upset or some discharge happening in the group, it's an indication that there are needs that are being unmet, and it presents the opportunity to be curious about what those needs are and to hold space for people to show up in their whole experience. Anybody else want to respond to that who's been involved? Caitlin, maybe do you have anything to add?
I think that was a great response. I wouldn't add anything, but I did just want to call attention to the fact that we also have a question in the chat from Courtney.
Oh, I didn't see that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll try to alert you when there are questions in the chat. It looks like you're willing to take questions as you go. Is that right, Andy?
I am totally.
Okay.
I'm not quite the speed reader. Courtney, would
Okay.
you like to ask your question?
Yeah, I was thinking about how the sociocracy process works for, or how it factors in people who are more shy or might need more time to process their thinking. You know, for me, I'm thinking specifically, I'm not always good at speaking on my feet and like to sometimes take some time to digest. So I'm just curious. It seems like sociocracy uses speaking as sort of its main mode of communication. I'm just curious if there's other ways to factor in people who are shyer or prefer the written word or something similar.
Awesome. People have different modalities of learning and engaging in group process and different speeds of processing. And my experience is that this levels the playing field where people, you know, the step up and step back prompt that often happens in groups. This is a good format for that, where people like myself who tend to talk a lot, I spend most of my time listening and integrating what people are saying. So it's a challenge for me in that way. It's also a challenge for a person who's more quiet because they will be called on to share what they're thinking or feeling. And so it's an invitation to greater transparency. If somebody's really like emotionally affected, of course, a good facilitator will acknowledge that and maybe offer a pass and then to come back. But in general, there's a bias toward sharing thoughts and feelings. Yeah, Kristen.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, because I read your question, Courtney, and I was thinking about it. And as you know, I'm new to sociocracy also. And I guess I should say I'm not somebody who is like, I prefer speaking and I'm usually like happy to speak. But something that I've noticed in being involved in the startup circle meetings is that because the round kind of takes place, you know, it takes a little bit of time to go through the round. And so, you know, there's always the option to pass initially, and then, you know, you get to go again at the end if you've passed. And for me, I found that like, it actually provides a really nice sort of like reflection time as you're kind of listening to each person. And it's given me, you know, for somebody that is more inclined to speak quickly, like to actually take a moment and reflect and be like absorbing what each person is saying. And then often finding that like by the time it comes back or by the time it's my turn, like actually have changed what I was thinking, or, you know, maybe it's shifted a little bit, and I think that's one of the really lovely things about the rounds is like it kind of slows down the conversation so that everybody is kind of reflecting and integrating new information and reflecting and kind of goes around that way.
Great question. Thank you, Courtney. How did we do with the answer? Like, is there anything left about the question that we didn't answer? Okay, cool.
No, I think that was very thorough. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Can we do the same check-in with Robbie? Robbie, do you feel like your question was answered?
Yeah, super. Let's do that with Robbie.
I'm sorry, my phone is ringing, so there's going to be one more ring. Okay, now it's not. I think so. I'm relating back to, I think the rounds might be helpful. I'm relating back to a specific meeting. So I think the rounds might be helpful. It might give a chance for people, especially if people aren't used to facilitating. I'm interested to see if what the leader's role is, and how things go around. I'm in a group where there's a lot of very strong-minded people, and there's a lot of there's sometimes a lot of hurt feelings. So it's interesting to see how this might work. So yeah, thanks.
You're reminding me that sometimes groups have group agreements, and we did that with our governance circle, which sets some standards for how we communicate with each other. That might help in that kind of situation where you can remind each other of the agreements. Yeah. Okay, we're going to try an exercise next. The aim of this circle today is to understanding and experiencing the basic principles of sociocracy. Okay, I'm just putting that out there as kind of the aim. And here's a proposal. Let's take a 30-minute break at 4 o'clock. And if you would like to participate in this exercise, please turn on your video. Otherwise, we'll assume that you're sitting out.
Can I just clarify, Andy? So we won't be in this at 4 o'clock. So did you mean to say a different time?
Thank you. I was confused by my clock. What I meant was at 2 o'clock. Thank you. So the proposal is to take a 30-minute break at 2 o'clock. Okay. And using that pattern of understanding, exploring, deciding, do you understand? I'm in the role of facilitator, and I'm going to just check with the group. Do you understand the proposal? Caitlin already asked a clarifying question. I gave a wacky time frame, so that was a clarifying question for understanding, right? Are there any other clarifying questions? Just signal if you have a question. Okay, Kia.
Yeah, this is just an exercise. This isn't
It's an exercise.
Yeah, okay.
No, we would do it if, like, we'll do this actually in the group. Yes.
Right, but I'm asking, is it just an exercise, or are you actually proposing a 30-minute break?
I'm proposing a 30-minute break.
Alrighty then.
Yeah, and the aim of the group is to get the basics. Okay, and notice what's happening, by the way, emotionally as you evaluate. Wow, there's some kind of mismatch. Debbie, did you have something? You're still muted, Debbie. Still muted.
So what would the purpose of the 30-minute break be? What would we accomplish with the break?
Just to rest and maybe reflect on what we've already heard. Kathleen.
Is this actually like a process of experiential and actually direct experience with the whole process of what a circle is about? Because personally, the idea of having a 30-minute break would be kind of, wow, I have to come back in 30 minutes. I don't really want to lose my attention. But then it's part of me is my, because I was working this morning, I haven't eaten and I need to eat and I don't like to eat on camera. So, gee, I would like to have some time to eat, but he told me I have to keep my video on and I don't really want to eat in front of people. So, so if this is actually the goal of this whole 30-minute break is actually to be part of an actually direct experience of what it is like to be part of a discussion circle and reflecting on our own opinions.
Yes, this is meant to be an experience of what we're teaching. And so Kathleen has already moved into a kind of reaction. So I'd like to continue with that trend, unless there were more clarifying questions. Oh, Hope, go ahead.
So in this like beginning part, would you go in the round? Would you listen to everyone to make sure that everyone understands the proposal? Or do you just kind of take like a thumbs up, everyone understands that we're discussing taking a 30-minute break, and then do we go through a round of comments about the pros and cons of actually doing a 30-minute break?
It's a both and.
Okay.
We have 17 people in the room. Optimal small group size is 8, give or take. 5 to 8.
Okay.
So it's hard to do a round with this many people. So I'm modifying a little as a facilitator by asking you to signal if you have a clarifying question. If it was a smaller group and something quite important, like a sensitive topic, absolutely, you would do a round checking for understanding.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
It's 14 hours.
Let's go to a reaction round. And I actually, because of the numbers and what we want to accomplish today, this will only be a sample. I'm not able to do the whole group. If you would, how can we do this? I'll just select 8 people and forgive me if you're not one of the 8. So Karen, your reaction to the proposal, please.
I do not agree to taking a 30-minute break because I find that it will be more distracting than processing to come back.
Thank you. Kia and then Rosanna.
In my experience, 5 or 10-minute break is good enough. So I think 30 minutes is too long, but that's just me. But in my experience, 5 or 10 minutes is good enough for a break.
Rosanna, then Courtney.
I think 10 minutes could be good to continue being engaged.
Courtney and then Kathy.
I agree. I think 30 minutes is too long. We'll get distracted. So I think 10 minutes is a good suggestion.
Kathy and then Hope.
I also agree that 10 minutes is, I think breaks are good, but 10 minutes is probably enough. And I want to make sure that we get to everything that is everything, all the material for the meeting.
And Hope, then Debbie will be the last person. You're muted, Hope. You're still muted.
Thank you for that reminder. So by my calendar, it looks like this meeting is supposed to be 2 hours until 3 o'clock, and I would much rather end at 2:30 than take a break for half an hour and then come back for a last 30 minutes.
Okay. Debbie?
I would agree that a 30-minute break, you might lose me because I might get on to other things. But a 5-10-minute break, if people need it, is fine with me.
Yep. Okay, so notice that a lot of information and some feeling came into the room with that reaction round. And the facilitator is serving the group, trying to facilitate the process. So I'm listening and gathering what's happening, like what's the pulse of the group, or what's possible is another way to think about that. So I'm going to modify the proposal, 5-minute break, and take a longer period of time if you need to. Okay, I've tried to take into account the things that I heard. And that, now back to Hope's question, if it was a smaller group, we would do consent in a round, or we could do flash consent. With something like this, would be inclined to do flash consent. So let me ask, first I'll ask any objections. It's one way to clear objections, right? I don't see any objections. Consent? Awesome. Well, let's go ahead. I don't see all the thumbs up though. Okay, good. Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break. We'll be back at 1:09. Thank you.
Set timer for 2:09.
Your timer is set for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 minute. So by way of explanation, because we're an international organization, I'm I'm trying to use a 24-hour clock, and it has me totally confused. That's why I said 109 instead of 209. But here we are. I think you understood. All right. We were just experiencing the consent process. I'd like to go over this again. A proposal is made, and then an opportunity for clarifying questions. This little balloon here shows two different ways to approach that. You can answer the questions as they come up, or you can complete the round and answer the questions all at once. Quick reactions round, and then the consent round, and most importantly, integrating objections, which is what we just experienced. Thank you for all of those great objections. Okay. Little strange on Zoom. If I was presenting this workshop in person, I would have group feedback, but I'm getting some nonverbals, so thank you. This is the standard meeting format that includes an opening round like we did at the beginning. That kind of human-to-human check-in is of great value. Communication and connection is kind of the glue that holds this all together. And knowing where people are in their lives is an important part of that. Then we have this acronym admin, where we go through the attendance, make sure everybody's here, check the duration of the meeting, minutes from the last meeting, information that might be outside of the agenda that the group is having for the day, but important for the group to know. So it's a chance for updates. And then next meeting. This is something unique. I haven't seen it done much in other places, to schedule the next meeting at the beginning of the meeting rather than rush at the end to try to find a time. So this prioritizes continuity from meeting to meeting. And then this section in the middle is completely expandable. The facilitator presents the agenda and calls for consent. And agenda items could be a matter of bringing a report and just testing to be sure that the group understands the report. It could be the first two steps of bringing a future proposal, but not deciding today. So that would be understand and explore, just to get reactions from the group, feedback from the group. Or you might be going for all three: understand, explore, decide. And the decision-making would be, again, using that consent process that we looked at. We've referred to the backlog as the place. Sometimes you've heard of parking lot or bike rack as the place where important items go, but not things that you'll be deciding today. And sometimes that will come up in the course of business. And then the closing round, it's a personal checkout. How are you doing leaving the meeting, but also an evaluation of the meeting process. Those of you who have experienced this a lot, do you have anything to add to the meeting agenda conversation? I don't see any. Okay, great. I remember Caitlin talking about distributing power when she was reflecting on the Food Policy Council. And this is one of the main things that Sociocracy has to offer, is that decision-making power is distributed as much as possible away from the center and out to the periphery. so that this group, if you imagine this as a top view of a tree, this could be the trunk, right, seen from above, and the major limbs here, and then the branches and the fruiting bodies of the tree on the periphery. Each of these circles has a defined aim and domain of decision-making, authority, and responsibility. And in terms of budgeting, each of these department circles would have, the organization as a whole would have a budget that it would distribute through these department circles out to the places where they're needed. That's one way that power is distributed. Any questions about this before we go on?
I just want to quickly say, Andy, that I just want to clarify, that's not necessarily a decision that's been made for the Food Policy Council, how budgeting.
Correct. I'm presenting sociocracy and how like a general format, but yes, that's a decision yet to be made or made differently. And then in this structure, each of the circles is not disconnected from the whole. They are connected through double linking, where a leader is selected to lead the subcircle, and a delegate is selected to represent the subcircle in the parent circle. So the initiatives of the subcircle are expressed here, and the overall format or purpose of the organization is expressed here. These two people attend and are full members of both, of both circles. Anything about that that is not clear? Okay. And then the circles themselves have a lot of support. What's called the parent circle or the originating circle, a sibling circle, individuals or experts who can provide advice or support, the whole organization as a network, a helping circle that arises to do a specific thing for a short term and then completes its work and is discontinued, and subcircles. If this group is going along and there's more work to do or a new initiative that the group itself doesn't have the capacity for, it can spawn a subcircle to take on that work. So in the organization that I'm part of, Sociocracy for All, we realized that we had a support circle, and it was doing a lot of work on maintaining the website, building new pages and dealing with servers and everything else. Not everybody on the support circle needed to be involved in that or think about it or do that work. So we formed a subcircle for the website. That would be an example of a subcircle. In co-housing where I live, we have a common house circle and a kitchen subcircle. And the kitchen subcircle decides how the meals will be served, what kinds of equipment to have in the kitchen, what policies to have about using the refrigerators or the stoves. All of those are held by the kitchen circle. All right, I have a hands-on learning. You can do this if you want or not, but I'll give the instructions. if you stand up and stand on one foot. Okay, switch to the other foot. Okay, now close your eyes and switch to the other foot. And back to the other foot. Okay, that's the exercise. Let's talk about it. What did you notice? What was the difference?
Standing on one foot with your eyes closed is much more difficult than with your eyes open.
And why is that, Hope?
Because your vision helps balance you. It helps stabilize your whole body when you focus on a point. The same would be true, I think, if we were looking all around and trying to stand on one foot, but much harder with your eyes closed.
Anything else? Any other observations about the difference? Yes, Kathleen.
I had to make accommodations based on my personal physical form and my injured ankle. So standing on one foot was definitely difficult, which again leads back to the whole reality of personal biases and cultures and backgrounds and experiences. We all have our own little window to see the world from.
Totally. So this is a basic point about feedback, which is one of the 3 pillars of sociocracy: feedback, consent, decision-making, and structure. We make the analogy of riding a bike. If you're going along, you're constantly getting information from your environment and in your own body about balance and correcting to stay on course. And that's how it is with this process. We take the initiative, we do something, and then measure the results, and then iterate on that process. My personal critique of the Food Policy Council that we're forming now, we are on, we've been doing a lot to build the structure and to establish policy. And there's a push now to just get out and do anything at all to improve the life situation of people who are experiencing food insecurity. And that would be an example of somebody leading with an initiative, doing it, see what happens, learn from that, and do it again. Kind of repeat the cycle. So the bias in sociocracy is to go ahead and do things as they occur. And we have an expression, good enough for now, safe enough to try. Which goes back to that range of tolerance. What is the risk if we just get out there and do it? Any questions about this before I go on? Robbie, did you have something?
Kristen had a question in the chat.
Oh, Kristen, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. One thing that's still a little unclear to me about the circle structure is whether a subcircle has the power to make decisions on its own, or if that circle is kind of generating proposals that they agree on that then go back to the initial circle. Or is that something that's kind of decided on, when you set up a subcircle? Is that clear?
It's a great question. It's a basic question. One of the exciting things about sociocracy, and scary, honestly, is that decision-making, authority, and responsibility is distributed. So a subcircle is established with a domain of responsibility and an aim. And usually a leader is selected to get that going, but the group itself consents to that leader being the leader of the circle. And once they're up and running, yes, they make decisions within their domain. They take actions, they spend money if money is involved, as long as it's within the constraint of their domain.
So does the initial circle have to all consent to what the domain is for the subcircle, or is that something that the subcircle decides?
Usually it flows that first way, where the initial circle will define it, but it could also work the other way. Sometimes it does, but there is consent all the way around by the circle and by the circle that it's linked to.
Got it. Thanks.
Anything else? Okay. On to the next. This is another rendering of the circle process or circle structure that I like a lot, that it speaks about feedback. You can see that there is no circle here that is not connected to the other circles, all of the other circles. So communication is flowing from one of these outer circles to the next circle and then on to the next. Now, if you think of a hierarchical organization, you have a flow of communication from the top to the bottom, so to speak. This we describe as a circular hierarchy, which to me, I heard that the first time. I thought, what? A circular hierarchy? What do you mean? But the basic idea is that we're accountable to one another across the whole organization. The other thing I like about this image is that if you take that dotted line and you expanded it, you would end up with a large circle. And the other way around is if you think of pushing in to form these attached circles, the large group is being formed in a way that it can be productive in a small group working format. There still are times when the large group comes together to socialize, for community building, for training, but for decision making, the group takes on this distributed format. So this could be an organization with 70 members, but each of the working circles, including the general circle in the middle, would have about 8 people. Any questions about this? A note about the community where I live. This is what's called Pioneer Valley Co-housing Community. And they're 25 years old, and for most of that time worked by consensus. So all of the member owners in the co-housing community would sit in a large circle and make the big decisions in that format. What they discovered over time was it had the value of equivalence. Everybody had a chance to speak and to have a say in decisions. But over time, they experienced a kind of conservatism where a small group of people would work hard on a proposal over weeks or months, and they'd get feedback, and the big moment would arrive where they would present it to the circle of the whole, and some person or persons would just have a reaction to it, maybe without a lot of context, or maybe there's something personal going on. And this was over time quite discouraging. and resulted in people saying things like, I'm not going to stick my neck out. I'm not going to waste my time. That's one experience of one community, but that was enough of a pain point for this community to seek another way. And they discovered sociocracy and spent 5 years testing, learning, and finally implementing here in this community. And I've arrived here and found like a highly functioning operating system that's humming along in the background that I've been able to engage and join circles and do work. And it's kind of second nature here, but it wasn't always that way. I'd like to
Andy?
Yeah, go
Excuse
ahead,
me.
please.
Can I clarify if I'm hearing you properly? The scenario you were just sharing, that at first the group wasn't based on sociocracy, and then, but yet a subcommittee was created to perhaps make a decision about something. And when that decision was brought to the large group, after that group had worked so hard to do all their research, planning, and preparation, basically one voice busted the balloon and created a very frustrating and, disillusioned environment. That was before sociocracy. But then in the process of creating a sociocratic environment, it ended up avoiding that kind of a scenario because everything had to be agreed on prior to the creation of the subgroup. Is that correct?
Subgroups were given domains to make decisions in. So for example, they used to have agonizing debates about the colors to paint the houses. You can imagine how that went. Well, finally there was buildings and grounds circle that made those decisions. They actually had like Battle of the Titans, 40 people in a room, blah, 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 stupid and everything else. And suddenly, now there are chafing points with sociocracy. In particular, people who think that other people are making decisions that affect their lives and they don't have direct input. And that's kind of the trade-off. It's not true that they don't have direct input. They don't have direct decision-making power. But the principle is that the more important the decision, the more the need to get feedback from across the whole organization, and a lot of it, to be sure that we've heard from everyone. And even after a decision is made, if there's a lot of difficulty or objection, then the group revisits its decision with that new feedback. We're constantly course correcting based on what's real conditions, what people are experiencing. Does that help, Kathleen? Okay, great. There are lots of resources available, including the book, Many Voices, One Song, which is an operating manual for sociocracy. It's available in Spanish, and Portuguese is coming online, Hebrew, German, Italian, French, Chinese, believe it or not. So I think I've come to the end of my presentation part. I'm happy to answer any more questions or get your reactions to what you've heard. My suggestion is that we do a closing round, and feel free to ask a question or give a reaction to the training. Who would like to go first? Okay, Kathleen.
I have appreciated this educational experience, and I definitely have a better understanding of sociocracy and also the way Caitlin conducts the meeting, and they have been very productive, and I can see how this can make a much more productive community circle, family circle, or whatever. It certainly has very, very productive keys to building a good communication and a good productive community.
Thank you, Kathleen. Karen and then Hope.
I feel like I've gotten a better understanding of how sociology works, or I can't say it yet because I don't have it in front of me.
Sociocracy. It's hard.
Sociocracy works. I do believe I need a lot more practice. And I would like to watch more. I think I'm going to look it up on the internet to see if there's any videos where people are actually doing it, to get a better understanding of it. But I appreciate everything, and I feel like I've got an introduction to the method.
Awesome. A friend of mine said, I think you're going to succeed despite that name. Let me just type. There's a link for a place to find some videos. Hope and then Hannah.
I am really excited that the Food Policy Council is using this method. I think it's going to be really inclusive and consensus building. And yeah, and I just appreciate that there's such intention around creating a decision-making structure that is really inclusive. And I'm also thinking about all of the other ways in which this strategy could help in my life with other organizations that I work with.
Hannah and then Roz.
Yeah, hi everybody. Sorry, I didn't get to introduce myself. My name is Hannah and I'm with the Western Mass Regenerative Food System, as well as a grad student at UMass focusing on sustainable food systems. Thanks for having me. We're also, for those of you who don't know, we're also considering a sociocracy model. So I came here today to listen to things a little bit more formally. Oh man, I have so many questions now. It's really exciting, and then also it seems a little daunting as any more serious or committed formalized structure, as it comes with anything, governance can be difficult. And so I'm really glad that I got to listen in today to generate some of my own questions, and I appreciate your group taking the initiative to embrace this method. Thanks for having me.
Roz and then Courtney. And again, feel free to ask any questions if you have them, lingering questions. Roz? You're muted, Roz.
I really appreciate the values that are incorporated into sociocracy. And the commitment that people make when they choose to use it, the inclusiveness and so forth. My concerns have to do at times with some of its complexity, and that it can take a very long time for people to get truly comfortable with it. And I was thinking, when I was watching all those different circles you had, or sub-circles or helping circles, if you have a circle that's only going to be meeting for a short period of time, and you've got folks who maybe have not learned sociocracy, it could be a little bit difficult to use it then. That my sense is it seems to work better when you have at least a core group of people that are together over a period of time. And once they learn it and learn it well, it seems to work very nicely for them. But if time is ever a concern, an issue, that's when I personally could run into a little trouble with it. But it's obvious that a lot of thought has gone into this whole governance process, and I respect that.
Roz, you're reminding me, I meant to mention that there are 3 helping circles right now with the Food Policy Council: budget, training, and vision, mission, aim, and domain. And those are short-term circles. The training circle is looking at that question exactly. What is the minimum training people will need to get into this and to do well in a circle? Yeah, Courtney and then Debbie.
I feel like I've learned a lot today, so I want to say thank you. This was very informative. Some quick reactions. It seems like this model requires a strong facilitator, which I just, for my personal skill building is something I'm interested in. And I think I'm considering what tools I can take from today's training and use in my meetings going forward. I like that admin approach for organizing an agenda, so I'll look into that more.
Cool. There is facilitation training. There's a whole chapter in the book about facilitation, and SOFA offers workshops on facilitation. So you might look for those. Debbie and then Kathy. You're muted, Debbie.
Keep on losing that button. I like the process, and I think it just feels close to where my heart is in most of these group processes. And I think it's, fairly simple. I think when you were talking about the use of the sociocracy for the painting of the colors of the co-house, painting colors, I was trying to envision, being a part of my neighborhood association, trying to envision how that would have gone once you kind of narrowed it to somebody else, to another group to make those decisions, and how that would fly. So I guess experiencing will give me more, I think, on how that actually looks in the works.
Just a quick reaction to that. It's not decisions like in a isolated room. It's decisions informed by the community. So
Right.
surveys and forums to hear from people about what they think about paint colors. But then ultimately the group decides. Yeah. Kathy and then Caitlin.
Oh, thank you. This was really, really informative. As I said, I also live in a co-housing community and have been a part of the Springfield Food Policy Council. So I'm kind of imagining it in both settings, and part of what I'm in terms of the Food Policy Council is that ultimately it serves this larger Hampshire County, right? So what would the mechanisms for getting that feedback, so that it feels like that the circle has enough to work with that represents the the broader community equitably. So that's what I liked about that. So so it's exciting to be learning with you all and thinking about ways to apply it. So thank you.
A quick comment here. I think CES, in particular Caitlin, does a great job of listening to the community and garnering that kind of feedback. So that continues strongly. Caitlin, and then Kristen.
Thanks for those kind words, Andy. Yeah, great. Always great to just get a little refresher on sociocracy, and it's really helpful to me to just hear how other folks are reacting to it. A lot of you have kind of been along for the ride here in the learning circles and things like that, and have known or understood that we are kind of approaching this process really differently, and starting with some of the folks who are not always at the table when the table is created. And so, it's really interesting to see what happens when that group of folks decides on the decision-making method, and then see how other folks react to it. So it's encouraging to me to hear a lot of positive feedback.
Kristen, and then let's see, Kia.
This has been great. I'm new to Healthy Hampshire and just starting to use Sociocracy in the Food Policy Council startup circle meetings. And, I've been a part of a lot of different organizations and entities and community-based kind of coalitions and all sorts of different groups of people over the years that are trying to figure out how to govern themselves. And I just feel like this is a really exciting model that seems to be sort of rippling through the valley right now. So it's interesting to see different groups taking it up and playing around with it and seeing if it's a good fit. And I just am really welcome any opportunity to learn more about it. So I really appreciate this today, and I'm excited to keep practicing, because I agree, like what I've heard other people saying is we really want to like see it in action. And for me, that's helped so much to be, to practice it. And so hopefully we'll all get a chance to be a part of a circle, and either through the Food Policy Council or the Western Mass Regenerative Food System or something else. So thanks, Andy, for being such a good trainer to us.
Thank you, Kristen. Kia and then Madeline.
Yeah, this was a great refresher for me. It just made me, it's something, when you're using a system like this, sometimes it's good to take a step back and just relook at how you're doing things. And from an experiential point of view, it's not as difficult and complicated as it might look in some of the diagrams. Like it seems to be working out really well. I mean, there are definitely bumps. There can be issues if somebody doesn't have the same training as you, like how do you bring those people along in the process and have them be comfortable with it? Those are all learning experiences, but it's flexible enough to accommodate those discomforts, I just really like how it's so inclusive of listening deeply to everybody. That part of it makes me, it reminds me of just being mindful of so many things, about myself, about my own reactions, about watching other people's feelings, come up to light, and how to address everybody's concerns and, feelings and emotions. And it's a really safe way to do it, because everybody knows you're not going to be attacked from anybody, from any part of the group. There's none of that. It's all about listening and making each other comfortable with having their own needs met. I think that's really important to point out. That's why I like it. And that's why I've become such an advocate for this process. And in the very beginning, I was just kind of really skeptical. It was just like, yeah, democracy should be like this. Like that was my very first reaction at the gate, but it's not that. It's, and having an open mind and accepting how the process works, and being very patient with everybody else's feelings is something that I really learned how to do. And I appreciate that so much. So thank you, Andy, so much for including me in all of this stuff.
Madeline and then Debbie.
I'm going to test out a metaphor for what this feels like to me. It's a paradigm shift away from like junky packaged food that's just like easy, like, oh, I'm just so hungry, I'm just going to open a bag of chips. It's easy and it's fast, but it's not that nourishing. Now the sociocracy model is like cooking a pot of locally grown grain. It takes longer, but it's like, oh, so nourishing. And like, we're all in this for like the long haul. And that's a good thing. I feel like we're investing. And yeah, it's like, I've been training a little and learning in other groups. And it's disorienting and reorienting to something that feels much more like stable and lasting. I'm really excited about it. Thanks.
Debbie, have you gone yet? I thought so. So the screens jump. Is there anyone who hasn't gone? Who would like to speak now? Okay, Rosanna's giving her clapping hands. Thank you, Rosanna.
I have a question, Andy.
Yeah, go ahead.
So watching people's reactions and sort of just being a listening on. I'm just wondering what do groups' resistance patterns usually look like, and is it confusion oriented, or I know Madeline was using the nourishment sort of methodology there, which I really appreciate. But I'm wondering basically, like, how easily is this absorbed? Like, do people like readily sort of latch on, or is there like a learning curve? What's that process look like?
The learning is in the doing. That's my instant answer. And resistance is usually around sharing power. I like the cooking analogy. I've thought of this as the slow cooking of self-governance. It takes a while. It's deliberative. And it's kind of countercultural to intentionally slow down and do mostly listening to what other people are bringing. And to let go of my own ideas or my own plans or projects, but to open up space to do that together. Especially people who are accustomed through their social location to holding power, to telling other people what to do, or to being the person to say the most important things in a group. So I anticipate we'll have people who say, I don't need that training. I've had a lot of life experience. I don't need to learn a new way. That might happen. Does that help? Rosanna, do you have your hand raised? Would you like to speak?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, great, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, it's this model is incredible. Include people all the time. This is amazing. I see in others, I have the opportunity to see others advisory councils, and yeah, there are people is monopolizing the conversation, or so no, there are opportunities for everybody to talk. Because they are not ready, or they are not enough brave to raise voices. So, but this model is encourage everybody to do that, to include that. Every voice is counted. Every voice is needed. Thank you. Thanks.
I think that's a good note to end on. Thank you all for coming today and for having this experience together. I'm available. I'll put my email in the chat if you want to contact me directly. And so glad I was.
Yeah, before we wrap up, Andy, I just noticed Glenroy, or Kathy, thank you for pointing out to me that Glenroy joined us partway through this training. And so Glenroy, I don't know if you want to reflect at all on what you heard, if you're there.
I was on the way to get on the highway, and I had to stop to park, and I saw there was only like around 30 or 20 minutes left, so I'm just basically was on the tail end of everything. So that's why I kept my mouth closed.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us, Glenroy.
Thanks, Glenroy.
I'll pitch it back to you, Caitlin. Anything you want to say in conclusion?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was great. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. The only thing that I'll just keep reminding folks is, if you know anybody who wants to get involved in the Food Policy Council, wants to receive communications about it, attend the learning circles, kind of find out what's going on as things unfold, and they are starting to unfold, please just send that survey link to them, and I'll put it in the chat again. That's, and I know you've all heard me say this, but that is where I'm really trying to collect all of our information and email addresses and everything. So I'll just put that in the link one more time. And then the other thing I will say is that, wait, what is the link? HCFPC survey. Okay. The other thing I'll say is that we have been having learning circles once a month on the last Tuesday of the month, and generally we have been knowing what the next learning circle is by the time we finish one learning circle, but we don't actually have a topic for March and to think about what month it was. So just wanted to sort of give you a heads up to hold this window on the last Tuesday of March and kind of find out what that learning circle topic will be. And also just want to invite, if anybody has suggestions for things that you'd like to learn about or that you think would be helpful for other folks in the network, to please go ahead and email me your ideas. I'd be happy to hear them. And that's it. So thanks everyone so much for joining us today. And thank you so much to Andy and Kia for presenting, and everybody else for your really engaged participation. It was really nice to see everyone so engaged, and I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.